Have you ever looked at your bank account on payday and wondered where all the money actually went? You know that feeling. You got paid on Friday, and by Wednesday, you're already scraping together change for gas money. The paycheck hits your account and it feels like it evaporates into thin air, consumed by rent, utilities, food, subscriptions, and 1,000 other expenses that somehow all demand to be paid at the same time. And here's the thing that really gets me about it. Most people work incredibly hard for their paychecks. They're grinding away at jobs they tolerate at best and despise at worst, trading away hours of their finite lives for money that disappears faster than ice cream on a hot summer day. Yet somehow, no matter how much they earn, they always feel broke. More money comes in and more money goes out, like their bank account is a leaking bucket that somehow gets bigger holes the more water you pour into it. My name is Lenny, and I spend way too much time thinking about why people remain financially stuck despite working full-time jobs. If you've ever wondered how some people manage to build wealth while others with similar incomes never seem to get ahead, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if it helps explain this modern financial puzzle. Because here's the truth that nobody wants to hear. Getting out of the paycheck trap isn't about earning more money. It's about understanding where your money goes and actually doing something about it. Most people approach their finances like they're driving in the dark with their headlights off. They know they're moving, they can feel movement happening, but they have absolutely no idea what's coming at them or where they're heading. They get paid, they spend money on things they don't even remember buying, and then they wonder why they're still broke. The automotive industry has figured out that people don't want to think about their car payments. The subscription services have figured out that people won't cancel things they don't actively remember paying for. The entire consumer economy is designed around the principle that you won't notice if money slowly bleeds out of your account, one small transaction at a time. Let me paint you a picture of what we're actually dealing with here. The average American household is working more hours than ever before in history, yet they're accumulating less wealth. People are exhausted, stretched thin, and trapped in a cycle where their income never quite catches up to their expenses. They're one unexpected emergency away from financial catastrophe. They're using credit cards to bridge the gap between their income and their spending. They're taking on debt just to maintain a lifestyle that doesn't actually make them happy. But here's where it gets interesting. This entire situation is completely avoidable. The paycheck trap isn't some unavoidable feature of modern life. It's a choice, albeit an unconscious one, that most people have made without even realizing it. And if it's a choice, then it can be unchosen. If you created the trap, you can escape the trap. The question is whether you're willing to do the work necessary to actually break free. Let's start with the most fundamental principle that most people completely overlook. Your money has a job. Every single dollar you earn is supposed to do something specific. It's supposed to either help you survive in the short term or build your future in the long term. But here's what happens in the paycheck trap. Your money gets spent on things without any conscious direction. It flows out of your account reactively rather than proactively. You're not directing your money is directing you, pulling you in 1,000 different directions toward 1,000 different expenses and wants and vague obligations that add up to complete financial chaos. The first step to escaping the paycheck trap is implementing what I call the zero-based budget. And before you roll your eyes thinking budgeting is boring or restrictive, hear me out. A zero-based budget isn't about restricting yourself or making yourself miserable. It's about intentionality. It's about making conscious choices about where your money goes, instead of letting it disappear through 1,000 tiny holes. Zero-based budgeting simply means that every dollar you earn has a specific job before you spend it. Here's how it works. You get paid. You immediately decide where that money is going. Some goes to rent or mortgage, some goes to utilities, some goes to groceries, some goes to insurance, some goes to debt payments if you have them. But here's the critical part that most people miss. After you've allocated money to all of your true necessities, whatever is left over is allocated to your future, whether that's an emergency fund, investments, or other wealth-building activities. The money doesn't get to sit in your checking account like an open invitation to impulse spending. The reason this works is because it forces you to confront the real numbers. It forces you to stop pretending that you can somehow afford everything you're currently spending on. Most people have never actually calculated how much they spend on dining out, on subscriptions, on entertainment, on all the small purchases that seem insignificant individually but add up to astronomical numbers annually. When you implement a zero-based budget, you can't hide from those numbers anymore. You have to face them head on. Let me give you a concrete example of what this looks like. Imagine someone earns $3,000 monthly after taxes. Their rent is $1,000, utilities are $150, groceries are $300, insurance is $200, phone bill is $80, internet is $60. That's all necessities, and we're at $1,900. They have $1,100 left over. But here's where people mess up. That $1,100 doesn't get to be spent on whatever they want whenever they want. $500 goes into an emergency fund until they have 3 to 6 months of expenses saved. $300 goes toward debt payoff if they have consumer debt. $200 goes toward retirement savings. $100 goes toward a sinking fund for car maintenance or medical expenses they know are coming. That leaves $100 for discretionary spending, not to maintain their current lifestyle, to actually have some breathing room and fun money. Yes, $100 for everything outside of basic survival. And before you think that's impossible, remember that the person in this example was already spending money they didn't have on things they didn't need. They were just doing it unconsciously. The second critical step in escaping the paycheck trap is what I call the subscription audit. Americans are literally throwing money away every single month on subscriptions they've forgotten about, streaming services they never watch, gym memberships they never use, apps they opened once, software subscriptions they thought they canceled but still show up on their credit card statement, magazine subscriptions from before the internet existed. I've seen people with over $30 monthly going to services they literally forgot they were paying for. This is such a ridiculously easy win that I'm shocked more people don't do it. Go through your credit card and bank statements from the last 3 months. Write down every recurring charge, every subscription, every automatic withdrawal, every membership. Then ask yourself honestly, am I using this? Is this bringing value to my life? Would I buy this again today if I had to think about it consciously? If the answer is no, cancel it immediately. Most people find between $50 and $200 monthly in recurring charges they can eliminate without any impact on their quality of life. But here's where it gets really interesting. The subscription audit often reveals something much deeper about how money is being spent. People realize they're paying for things they actively dislike. Gym memberships for exercise they never do. Premium software they don't use. Services they signed up for months ago as a free trial and never canceled. It's like discovering you're paying rent on an apartment you never visit. The subscription audit is just the beginning. It's the gateway to the realization that you have much more control over your finances than you think. The third step is implementing what I call the 24-hour rule. This is a simple but incredibly effective rule for discretionary spending. If you want to buy something that's not a necessity, you have to wait 24 hours. You put it in your cart, you screenshot it, you bookmark it, but you don't buy it immediately. You wait 1 full day. 90% of the time, you won't even remember what you wanted to buy. The impulse will fade. You'll realize you don't actually need it, and your bank account will be better for it. The 24-hour rule essentially adds friction to impulse spending, which is exactly what you need because impulse spending is the enemy of escaping the paycheck trap. But implementing individual rules isn't enough by itself. You need to understand the bigger picture of where your money is going. You need to understand your spending patterns. Most people spend money in predictable ways. They have categories where money consistently flows. Dining out, entertainment, impulse purchases, shopping, transportation. For most people in the paycheck trap, 1 or 2 categories consume enormous amounts of money that should be going toward building their future. The dining out category alone can easily run $300 to $500 monthly for families that mostly eat out because they haven't meal prepped or planned their groceries. This is where it gets really empowering. Once you identify your biggest spending categories, you can make targeted changes. Maybe you commit to cooking at home 5 days a week instead of eating out. Maybe you cancel the expensive gym membership and use YouTube workouts for free. Maybe you cut your clothing budget in half by not shopping for a month. The specific changes don't matter as much as the principle. You're actively redirecting money that was flowing unconsciously into areas where it wasn't building anything, into areas where it actually contributes to your future. The fourth step is what I call the debt avalanche or debt snowball strategy, depending on your psychological preferences. But before you can escape the paycheck trap, you almost certainly need to eliminate consumer debt. Credit card debt, personal loans, payday loans, all the high-interest debt that many people in the paycheck trap have accumulated. This debt is like an anchor around your ankle that prevents you from ever moving forward. Every payment you make goes mostly to interest instead of building anything. If you have multiple debts, you need a systematic way to eliminate them. The debt snowball method means you attack the smallest debt first while making minimum payments on everything else. Psychologically, this feels amazing because you get wins quickly. You eliminate one debt, then you roll that payment amount into the next debt, creating a snowball effect that accelerates. The debt avalanche method means you attack the highest interest debt first. Mathematically, this saves you the most money. The specific method matters less than actually choosing one and committing to it. But here's the critical part that makes the difference. The money you're currently spending on debt payments needs to increase. You need to be aggressive about eliminating this burden because it's literally the ball and chain that keeps you trapped. The fifth step is building what I call the financial foundation. This is the unglamorous part of personal finance that nobody wants to talk about. Most people want to jump straight to investing and building wealth. They want to talk about stock portfolios and real estate and entrepreneurship, but if you don't have the foundation built, all of that is premature. The foundation consists of three things: an emergency fund, paid off consumer debt, and a stable monthly budget where you're living below your means. The emergency fund is absolutely non-negotiable. This is money set aside specifically for unexpected expenses that will absolutely happen. Your car breaks down, your furnace stops working, you have a medical emergency, you lose your job. Without an emergency fund, these situations force you into debt. You end up putting emergencies on credit cards or taking out loans. But if you have 3 to 6 months of expenses saved in an easily accessible account, unexpected emergencies become manageable instead of catastrophic. Here's what the foundation building usually looks like for someone serious about escaping the paycheck trap. First, they build a small emergency fund of $1,000 to $2,000 while making minimum payments on debt. This prevents new emergency debt from being created. Then, they aggressively pay off all consumer debt. They cut expenses, they maybe take a side hustle, they do whatever it takes to eliminate this burden. This phase usually takes 1 to 3 years, depending on how much debt there is. Only after they've eliminated consumer debt do they build their full emergency fund and then move into wealth building. The reason this sequence is so important is because it's easier to build wealth if you don't have debt payments, consuming your cash flow. Your debt payments are literally money leaving your hands that isn't building anything. They're interest payments going to credit card companies or lenders, instead of building your own future. The compounding effect of eliminating debt and redirecting that money toward your future is absolutely transformative. The sixth step is implementing what I call the 50-30-20 rule as a general guideline. After you've built your financial foundation and eliminated consumer debt, this becomes a helpful framework. 50% of your after-tax income goes to needs: housing, food, utilities, insurance, transportation. 30% goes to wants: entertainment, dining out, hobbies, subscriptions, all the things that improve your quality of life without being strictly necessary. 20% goes to building your future: retirement savings, investments, wealth building, paying off your mortgage faster. Now, if you're in the paycheck trap right now, you might not be able to hit these percentages immediately. You might be at 65% needs, 25% wants, and 10% future building, or even worse. But this rule gives you a target to work toward. As you eliminate debt and reduce expenses, you shift those percentages. You're moving money that was flowing toward wants into future building. And that's how the paycheck trap slowly transforms into wealth building. The seventh step is probably the most important, but also the hardest. You need to increase your income. And before you tell me that's impossible or that you can't get a better job, hear me out. I'm not necessarily talking about getting a new job or a promotion at your current job, though those things help. I'm talking about looking at your skills and seeing if there's a way to generate additional income. Maybe you're good at writing and you could do freelance writing. Maybe you're good at teaching and you could tutor students. Maybe you're good at fixing things and you could do gig work on weekends. Maybe you have possessions you don't need and you could sell them. The paycheck trap is especially insidious because people feel like they have no control over their situation. They feel like they're stuck with their job, stuck with their income, stuck with their lifestyle. But the truth is, almost everyone has more control than they realize. If cutting expenses alone gets you $50 monthly extra, that's great. But if you also generate $100 monthly from a side gig, you've just created $150 monthly of financial flexibility. Do that for a year, and you've redirected $1,800 toward your future. That money compounds, that money builds. That money is the difference between remaining stuck and actually escaping. The eighth step is shifting your identity and mindset around money and consumption. This is where the psychological part comes in. The paycheck trap persists, not just because of habits, but because of identity. People see themselves as consumers. They see spending as a way to express themselves and signal their status to others. The way out of the paycheck trap requires identifying as someone who builds wealth, someone who makes intentional financial choices, someone who values their future more than their immediate consumption. This might sound like abstract psychology, but it's actually the most critical factor. Because once your identity shifts to being someone who doesn't waste money, who makes conscious choices, who values wealth building over consumption, all the other steps become much easier. You naturally avoid impulse purchases, you naturally cancel subscriptions you're not using. You naturally look for ways to increase your income because it aligns with who you've decided to be. Think about how you explain your financial situation to others. Do you say I'm broke because I have no choice? Or do you say I'm choosing to live below my means while I build my future? The language matters. The story you tell yourself matters, because that story determines how you behave with money. If you see yourself as a victim of circumstances, you behave like a victim. If you see yourself as someone actively building wealth, you behave differently. You look for opportunities. You say no to things that don't serve your goals. You think about how your current choices affect your future. The ninth step is automating as much as possible. Once you've figured out where your money should go, you should set up automatic transfers. The day you get paid, money automatically goes into your various accounts and funds before you even see it in your checking account. Automatic payment toward debt, automatic transfer to emergency fund, automatic investment contribution, automatic transfer to savings. This removes temptation. This removes the need for willpower. This removes the ability to rationalize not following your plan because the plan is already in motion before you can talk yourself out of it. Automation is powerful because it leverages your future behavior against your current impulsive behavior. You're essentially locking in good decisions ahead of time. By the time payday comes around, your future and your needs have already been funded. What's left over is what you can spend guilt-free because you've already handled what matters. This is why people who automate their finances consistently build wealth, while people who try to manually manage their finances struggle. The 10th and final step is what I call the long-term vision. You need to know why you're escaping the paycheck trap in the first place. Is it so you can retire early? Is it so you can spend more time with your family? Is it so you can take a sabbatical and travel the world? Is it so you can start a business? Is it so you can give more to causes you care about? Whatever your vision is, it needs to be clear and compelling enough that it motivates you when the work gets hard. Because escaping the paycheck trap does require work. It requires discipline. It requires saying no to things you want in the moment so that you can have things you want more in the future. The paycheck trap persists because most people try to escape it without knowing where they're going. They just know they're tired of being broke. But if you don't have a compelling vision of what you're building toward, it's easy to give up when old habits tempt you. It's easy to rationalize going back to your old spending patterns when the motivation is just negative. You're not running towards something, you're just running away from something. That doesn't sustain effort over the long term. So here's what happens when you actually implement these steps. Month 1, you might free up $100. Nothing earth-shattering, but you notice it. Month 3, you've eliminated subscriptions and started meal prepping. You're now freeing up $300 monthly. Month 6, you've paid off a small credit card debt and redirected that payment. Now you're freeing up $500 monthly. Month 12, you've built momentum. You've created a budget that actually works. You've automated your savings. You've picked up a side gig. You're now freeing up $1,000 monthly that you weren't before. After 1 year, you've freed up roughly $4,000 to $5,000 that was previously going toward dead-end expenses. You've started building an emergency fund. You've made a dent in your consumer debt. You feel more in control. Your stress around money has decreased. You can see that the paycheck trap actually has a way out. The impossible suddenly becomes possible. The next time you get your paycheck and watch the money disappear into the ether, remember that you have more control than you think. The paycheck trap isn't some mysterious force, it's just the result of not consciously directing your money. And once you start directing it, once you start making intentional choices, everything changes. The trap was never truly unavoidable. You just have to decide that you're done with it, and then actually do the work to escape. That's the real secret that nobody talks about.